I turned 28 on a cool April evening in Boise, and for the first time in years, I felt like I had something to be proud of. I wasn't married. I didn't own a house yet, but I had carved out a steady career as a financial analyst at a regional bank, $9,000 a month. To some, it might just be a figure on a paycheck, but to me, it was proof that the prevention of cruelty to animals had been worth it. My parents decided to host a birthday dinner at their home, the same modest split-level house where my sister and I had grown up. I arrived with a blueberry pie from a bakery downtown, nervous but hopeful. I wanted this night to feel like family again, not the strained gatherings that had marked recent years. The backyard was strung with lights, neighbors chatting over plates of ribs, glasses of lemonade clinking on the porch. My father moved between the grill and the tables, cheeks red from the heat. My mother flitted about straightening napkins that didn't need straightening. A few of my colleagues from the bank came to smiling warmly when they spotted me. For a moment, I let myself believe that maybe this time would be different. Lisa sat near the back fence, her arms crossed, eyes darting every time someone congratulated me. I tried to ignore it, focusing instead on the laughter of neighbors, the smell of barbecue, the rare comfort of being celebrated. The evening unfolded with toasts and polite conversation, and for a brief spell I allowed myself to sink into it, telling myself that birthdays were about new beginnings. But just as the candles were lit and everyone's eyes turned toward me, the weight of Lisa's stare reminded me that peace never lasted long in our family. As I watched the candles flicker on the cake, my mind slipped backward, uninvited, to the years when Lisa and I were kids under the same roof. She was the louder one, the whirlwind that demanded attention. And more often than not, she got it. New shoes when the old ones still fit. Extensions on curfews when I was told no without question. Second chances at things where I was held to the line. I learned early how to disappear into my books. If I brought home an A, my parents would smile distractedly. But if Lisa scraped by with a C, there was ice cream and reassurance that she was doing her best. By high school, I had stopped expecting applause. Quiet excellence became my way of surviving, a shield I could carry without asking anyone to notice. Lisa, though, seemed to float from one excuse to the next. When she was admitted to Boise State University, my parents celebrated as if she'd secured a ticket to the Ivy League. But by the end of her freshman year, she called home claiming the classes were too demanding, that her professors didn't get her. She packed up her dorm, moved back to Boise, and that was the end of it. No lectures, no expectations, just sympathetic nods about how college isn't for everyone. Since then, she drifted. A few waitressing jobs, a short stint at a boutique that ended after a disagreement with the manager, and then long stretches of unemployment. Whenever her plans unraveled, my parents softened the story. Bad bosses, unfair systems, bad luck. I used to think maybe they were right. Maybe the world was harsher to her than it was to me. But standing in that backyard now, hearing laughter around me and feeling her gaze sharp on my skin, I knew better. Lisa wasn't unlucky. She was entitled. And in a family that never made her face consequences, that entitlement had only grown sharper with age. The cake was lowered in front of me, everyone singing, but all I could feel was the storm brewing in her silence. When I think about the life I've built, I can trace it back to the nights I spent in the library at Idaho State, poring over finance textbooks until my eyes blurred. Scholarships covered my tuition, but only if I kept my grades high, so there wasn't much room for slipping. I worked weekends at a diner off Vista Avenue, pouring coffee and counting tips that barely covered groceries. Those years taught me discipline, and more than that, they taught me the value of independence. During one summer, I landed an internship in Spokane with a mid-sized investment firm. The hours were brutal late nights running numbers for analysts who barely knew my name, but I soaked it up. Every spreadsheet, every presentation, every mistake corrected pushed me closer to something that looked like a future. When graduation came, I knew I could handle pressure because I had lived it. Coming back to Boise felt like the right move, a chance to stay near my dad as he got older and to plant roots in the city I understood. The regional bank job wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, and the salary gave me breathing room I'd never had before. $9,000 a month meant bills paid on time savings in the bank and the quiet comfort of knowing no one could pull the rug out from under me. It wasn't wealth, it was survival transformed into dignity. But that paycheck also drew invisible lines. Every time I mentioned work, I saw the flicker in Lisa's eyes, the way her smile tightened, the way she changed the subject. My success wasn't just my own. To her, it was a mirror of everything she hadn't achieved. At family dinners, conversations bent around her moods, and I learned to keep my victories small and unspoken so she wouldn't feel overshadowed. Still, envy has a way of leaking through even the politest silences. And sitting at that birthday table, I could feel it pressing against me, thick and sharp, waiting for the right moment to break through. When I think about the life I've built, I can trace it back to the nights I spent in the library at Idaho State, poring over finance textbooks until my eyes blurred. Scholarships covered my tuition, but only if I kept my grades high. So there wasn't much room for slipping. I worked weekends at a diner off Vista Avenue, pouring coffee and counting tips that barely covered groceries. Those years taught me discipline, and more than that, they taught me the value of independence. During one summer, I landed an internship in Spokane with a mid-sized investment firm. The hours were brutal late nights running numbers for analysts who barely knew my name, but I soaked it up. Every spreadsheet, every presentation, every mistake corrected pushed me closer to something that looked like a future. When graduation came, I knew I could handle pressure because I had lived it. Coming back to Boise felt like the right move. A chance to stay near my dad as he got older and to plant roots in the city. I understood. The regional bank job wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, and the salary gave me breathing room I'd never had before. $9,000 a month meant bills paid on time savings in the bank and the quiet comfort of knowing no one could pull the rug out from under me. It wasn't wealth, it was survival transformed into dignity. But that paycheck also drew invisible lines. Every time I mentioned work, I saw the flicker in Lisa's eyes, the way her smile tightened, the way she changed the subject. My success wasn't just my own. To her, it was a mirror of everything she hadn't achieved at family dinners, conversations bent around her moods. And I learned to keep my victories small, unspoken, so she wouldn't feel overshadowed. Still, envy has a way of leaking through even the politest silences. And sitting at that birthday table, I could feel it pressing against me thick and sharp, waiting for the right moment to break through. The singing had just faded, and the first wisps of smoke curled from the candles when Lisa scraped her chair back with a sound that silenced the yard. All eyes turned toward her. She didn't raise a glass or smile, didn't offer a toast. Her voice came out sharp, slicing through the air with a conviction that made my stomach drop. From today on, she said, her gaze locked on me. You'll hand over your entire $9,000 salary and every bonus. If you refuse, get out right now. The words hung there so outrageous I thought at first I'd misheard her, but then the gasps began rippling around the table. A neighbor dropped his fork, the clatter loud in the stunned quiet. My colleagues looked at one another in disbelief, their faces registering secondhand humiliation. I sat frozen, the heat from the candles pressing against my cheeks. My first instinct was to laugh, to dismiss it as some sick joke, but Lisa's eyes told me otherwise. They glittered with a hard edge, daring me to defy her. I turned to my parents, desperate for something, an intervention, a defense, anything that would puncture the absurdity of the moment. My father's eyes were fixed on the rib knife he still held, his knuckles white around the handle. My mother lowered her gaze to her lap, fingers twisting in the hem of her napkin. Neither spoke, neither moved. It was as though their silence was rehearsed, an old script they knew by heart. Let Lisa speak, let her rage, let the rest of us endure it. But this time, it wasn't a tantrum about high school grades or a lost job. This was my life, my work, my independence laid bare and claimed by someone who had never lifted a hand to earn it. The betrayal hit me in two waves. First, the audacity of Lisa's demand. The way she said it as if my paycheck already belonged to her. And second, the crushing weight of my parents' silence, their refusal to shield me from her greed. They didn't need to say the words aloud. Their bowed heads told me everything. My chest tightened, and I felt the sting of humiliation press against the back of my eyes. Around me. Whispers grew louder, the guests shifting uncomfortably in their seats, but no one spoke above a murmur. All the warmth from the evening had drained, replaced by a suffocating heaviness. I knew in that moment something had fractured beyond repair. And as I pushed back my chair, the sound of its legs scraping against the porch boards, I realized the only choice left to me was to stand and face the silence head on. The air felt heavier with every second that passed. Whispers rippled across the yard, the kind that scrape against your skin, even if you can't make out the words. I could feel the eyes on me. Neighbors, colleagues, even family friends all watching to see how I'd respond, how I'd survive being stripped bare in front of them. Lisa leaned back in her chair, her lips curved into a smirk that told me she had been waiting for this moment. She fed on the silence on the spectacle she'd created, her shoulders relaxing as if she'd proven something. For her, this was victory. I turned again to my father, hoping for a sign that he would finally speak, that the man who had once told me to be proud of what I'd built would defend me. But he only swirled the amber liquid in his glass, his thumb running over the rim as though studying it would spare him from facing me. My mother kept her eyes fixed on the tablecloth, fingers clenched tight in her lap. It was as if they believed that if they didn't move, if they didn't breathe, they could erase what Lisa had said. The betrayal burned worse than Lisa's demand. Her cruelty was expected. Their silence was not. The shame twisted inside me until it was too sharp to bear. I straightened my shoulders and pushed my chair back. The scrape of wood against the porch cut through the murmurs, drawing every eye to me. I stood without a word, my chest aching, but my face steady. I would not give them the satisfaction of watching me crumble. Lisa's smirk faltered just slightly as I lifted my chin and stepped away from the table. I didn't wait for anyone to call after me because no one would. I walked through the yard, past the string lights and the guests who parted silently to let me through, past the house I had once called home. The night air wrapped around me cool and sharp as I crossed the street to where my car waited. I opened the door, slid inside, and with one last glance at the glowing backyard behind me, I turned the key and drove away into the dark. The road stretched out before me. Boise's familiar streets blurred by the mix of tears and headlights. I passed the grocery store where I'd worked weekends in high school, the library where I had spent countless hours with a backpack full of ambition, and the coffee shop where I'd poured lattes while saving for textbooks. Every corner carried a memory, each one reminding me of how far I had come, how much of my life I had built on my own. The ache in my chest throbbed with every mile. Anger burned hot at Lisa, at my parents, at myself, for still wanting their approval. But beneath the rage was something else, something I hadn't expected. Relief. I rolled down the window, letting the cool April air rush against my face. It felt cleansing, as though the night itself was stripping away the weight of all those years I'd carried quietly, hoping for recognition that never came. Without thinking, I turned into Ann Morrison Park, the same park where my father used to bring me when I was small, when he was still the anchor I believed could steady anything. I parked and walked to the pond, the surface catching the faint glow of the street lamps. Sitting on the bench, I let myself breathe slow and steady until the noise of the night faded. For the first time in a long time, the silence didn't feel like absence. It felt like space to exist without anyone demanding, belittling, or erasing me. I whispered it aloud, barely more than a breath, "No one will dictate my worth again." The words lingered in the air, stronger than I felt, but true all the same. I stayed there until the cold seeped through my dress and my hands numbed, then stood and made my way back to the car, ready to face whatever came next. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex, the exhaustion hit me like a weight. I slipped off my shoes, set my phone on the counter, and collapsed onto the couch, staring at the ceiling. The night had carved something raw inside me, but it had also left behind a strange steadiness, like the ground had shifted and finally settled. It was close to midnight when my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, but the name flashing across the screen stopped me cold. "Lisa," I answered, bracing myself. Her voice wasn't sharp this time, it was shaky, uneven. "Mary, you need to help me. Please." I didn't say anything, letting her fill the silence. "People recorded it," she blurted at the party what I said. "It's everywhere now. Neighbors are talking. Your coworkers were there. And I know they'll tell everyone at your bank." Mom and Dad are humiliated. They said I've ruined our name. You have to fix this. Tell people it was a joke." I sat there listening to the panic in her voice, the cracks where triumph had lived only hours ago. In her world, my humiliation had always been hers to command, but the spotlight had turned on her this time. "I can't undo what you chose to say." I told her, my voice steady. She sniffled, her breath catching. "If you don't, everyone will hate me. You'll let them hate me." I thought of the smirk on her face, the silence of my parents, the way I had walked out alone. My answer didn't come quickly, but when it did, it felt final. "This isn't mine to fix," I said, and hung up, the quiet ringing louder than her voice ever had. The next morning, I drove back to my parents' house. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to. The yard still bore the remnants of last night, folding chairs stacked on the porch, paper plates in the trash bin, a faint smell of charcoal lingering in the air. Inside, the house was quiet, the kind of silence that carried guilt. My father sat at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee cooling between his hands. My mother stood by the sink, rinsing dishes that were already clean. Neither looked at me until I pulled out a chair. I should have said something. My father finally murmured, his eyes fixed on the mug. "We both should have. We didn't because, well, you know how Lisa gets. We've always tried to keep the peace." I let the words hang there, heavy and unsatisfying. Your silence hurt worse than anything she said. She's been this way for years, but you let it grow. Last night wasn't just her doing. It was yours too. My mother turned, her lips trembling. We thought if we gave her what she wanted, she'd calm down. We didn't realize what it would cost you. I kept my voice steady. It cost me more than you think, but I won't let her dictate my life. I won't hand over my salary, and I won't keep shrinking so she feels bigger. If you want to rebuild anything with me, it has to start with honesty, not silence. They both nodded, small and uncertain, like people hearing a language they hadn't spoken in years. I stood ready to leave, knowing the rest was up to them. And for the first time, I felt the weight of choice shift onto their shoulders instead of mine. In the weeks that followed, the chaos quieted, though its echoes lingered. I filled my days with purpose, registering for CFA prep classes that pushed me late into the night. The kind of studying that reminded me of my college years, but now carried a sharper edge of determination. On weekends, I packed small bags and drove, sometimes to Sun Valley, sometimes to McCall, letting the change of scenery remind me how wide the world was beyond the four walls of my family's home. I leaned more into friendships I had once neglected, saying yes to dinners and hikes, surrounding myself with people who saw me for who I was, not for what they could take. Each laugh, shared, each conversation that stretched late into the night, stitched something back together inside me. My parents tried in their own ways to reach out. A card in the mail from my mother with a note about how proud she was. My father stopping by with a bag of groceries. He insisted he had accidentally overbought. I accepted the gestures but kept them at arm's length, knowing that trust wasn't repaired by tokens but by actions. Over time, Lisa, on the other hand, faded into the margins. I heard through neighbors that invitations stopped coming her way, that the story of that night followed her into every room she entered. The smirk she once wore had been replaced by silence, and for once, she had no one else to blame. Looking back, I realized that birthday hadn't marked the loss of family or the collapse of belonging. It had marked something else entirely. The moment I chose myself, it wasn't an ending. It was a rebirth, one I had claimed with nothing but my own two hands. Mary's 28th birthday in Boise marked a pivotal lesson in self-worth and independence. Confronted by her sister Lisa's audacious demand for her $9,000 monthly salary, Mary faced not only Lisa's entitlement, but also her parents' complicit silence. This betrayal, set against the backdrop of a celebratory dinner, forced Mary to recognize the cost of shrinking herself to appease others. Her decision to walk away from the toxic dynamic, despite the public humiliation, taught her that her value is not dictated by familial expectations or approval. By choosing to leave, Mary reclaimed her dignity, forged through years of disciplined effort and quiet resilience. The subsequent relief she felt sitting by the pond in Ann Morrison Park underscored the power of self-assertion over submission to others' demands. Refusing to fix Lisa's social fallout further solidified her resolve to prioritize her own path. In the weeks that followed, Mary's commitment to her career and friendships reinforced her understanding that true belonging comes from authenticity, not sacrifice. This rebirth, claimed through her own strength, taught her that her worth is hers to define, unshackled from the weight of others' envy or inaction.
The Instagram notification arrived at 9:47 p.m. while I was reviewing financial statements in my home office. Elena had tagged me in a post about her boutique chain's latest expansion. The photo showed her cutting a ribbon at the grand opening of her 7th location, surrounded by local dignitaries and fashion industry executives. The caption read, "Success runs in the family. So grateful for this journey and everyone who believed in Elena's boutiques from day one. Some of us were born to build empires. Flexed biceps sparkles. #entrepreneur life. #family business. #not everyone." The comments were already pouring in. Congratulations from fashion bloggers, praise from business mentors, and unfortunately, several remarks from family members about how some people get the business gene and others don't. My cousin Ashley had written, "So inspiring. Unlike some people who are content with ordinary jobs, eyes," with 3 laughing emojis. I scrolled through 47 comments before reaching Elena's reply to Ashley. "Thanks, babe. You know what they say, some people are dreamers and doers, others prefer the safety of steady paychecks. Both have their place." Face blowing a kiss. 532 likes and counting. I left my own comment. "So true. Congratulations on everything you've built. Party popper." Then I opened my secure messaging app and typed a message to Patricia Morrison, my corporate accountant. "Please initiate termination of all partnership agreements with Elena's Boutiques LLC, effective immediately. Full withdrawal of invested capital, $75 million total. I want this processed first thing Monday morning." Patricia responded within minutes. "Are you certain about this timing? The boutiques are performing well and Q4 is typically their strongest quarter. This withdrawal will create significant cash flow issues." I typed back, "I'm certain. Please also terminate the commercial lease guarantees and cancel the credit line backing. Complete financial separation." "Understood. This will likely force emergency restructuring. Should I prepare documentation for the shell companies as well?" "Yes. I want all connections severed. Trinity Holdings, Cascade Investments, and Meridian Capital full withdrawal from all Elena's Boutiques ventures. I'll have everything ready Monday at 9 a.m. Fair warning, this will probably trigger immediate panic once the numbers hit their books." I set my phone aside and returned to my financial reports. Elena's Boutiques was performing well, just as Patricia had noted. Revenue had grown 340% over the past 3 years, profit margins were healthy, and the expansion strategy was solid. It was by any measure a successful business. What Elena didn't know was that her successful business had been built entirely on my anonymous investment. Every expansion, every new location, every marketing campaign, every piece of inventory, all of it funded through shell companies that traced back to me. The irony was particularly sharp tonight. Elena's Instagram post celebrating her empire was being liked and shared by hundreds of people who had no idea they were celebrating my money being used to fund someone who publicly mocked me for lacking entrepreneurial spirit. Growing up, Elena had always been the family's golden child entrepreneur. She started selling friendship bracelets in middle school, had a successful babysitting business in high school, and launched her first online boutique during college. By the time she graduated, everyone knew Elena was destined for business success. I meanwhile had been the academic one. Good grades, steady progression through school, practical degree in finance. The family narrative was clear. Elena was the creative visionary and I was the reliable worker bee. What they didn't see was that I'd been using my finance background to build something much larger than anyone realized. While Elena was launching her first boutique with a $15,000 loan from our parents, I was making my first million through strategic investments in emerging markets. While she was celebrating her second location, I was managing a portfolio worth $50 million. By the time Elena needed serious capital for expansion, I had the resources to help her. And I wanted to help her. She was my sister and her business plans were genuinely solid. So I created Trinity Holdings LLC and became her anonymous anchor investor. Elena thought she'd impressed sophisticated investors with her pitch decks and business acumen. She didn't know she was presenting to shell companies controlled by her supposedly unsuccessful sister. Over 3 years, I'd invested $75 million in Elena's boutiques through various entities. Equipment financing, lease guarantees, expansion capital, inventory funding, marketing budgets, all of it came from me. Elena's brilliant business instincts were actually just having unlimited access to capital from someone who wanted her to succeed. But tonight's Instagram post had clarified something important for me. Elena wasn't grateful for her success. She was using it as a weapon against family members she perceived as less accomplished. And she had no idea she was attacking the person who'd made her success possible. I spent the weekend reviewing all my investments connected to family members. The numbers were staggering. Beyond Elena's boutiques, I'd anonymously funded my brother Marcus's restaurant chain, $45 million, my cousin Derek's tech startup, $23 million, and my uncle's real estate development projects, $67 million. Combined with smaller investments in various family ventures, I'd deployed over $230 million to support my relatives' businesses. All while they treated me like the family's cautionary tale about playing it safe and lacking ambition. Monday morning arrived gray and cold. I was in my office by 7:30 a.m., reviewing the final documentation for the Elena's Boutiques withdrawal. Patricia had prepared everything perfectly: termination notices, capital withdrawal authorizations, lease guarantee cancellations, and credit line closures. At exactly 9 a.m. I authorized the transfers. Elena's first call came at 10:23 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. Hey, hope you're having a good Monday. Quick question, do you know anything about investment firms? I'm getting some confusing calls from our financial partners, and I thought maybe your accounting background might help me understand what's happening. Call me back. Her tone was still upbeat, still confident. She clearly thought this was a minor administrative issue that her practical sister could help resolve. The second call came at 11:47 a.m. Okay, this is getting weird. Trinity Holdings just terminated our partnership agreement? Like, completely. They want all their money back immediately. $75 million. That's not how investments work, right? Something must be wrong. Call me back ASAP. Now there was tension in her voice. Still manageable, but the first signs of real concern. By 1:15 p.m., Elena had called 6 more times. The voicemails told the story of her morning. Confusion turning to worry, turning to panic as she realized the scope of what was happening. All 3 investors pulled out. All of them. On the same day. That can't be a coincidence. Someone is targeting my business. I need to figure out who's behind this and why they want to destroy me. At 2:30 p.m. my assistant buzzed my intercom. Ms. Rodriguez? Your sister Elena is here to see you. She says it's urgent. I looked up from my computer screen, where I was reviewing new investment opportunities in sustainable fashion companies. Send her in. Elena burst through my office door looking frantic. Her usually perfect hair was disheveled, her makeup smudged, and she was clutching a folder of papers against her chest like a shield. Thank God you're here, she said, rushing to my desk. I need your help. Someone is trying to destroy my business. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Sit down. Tell me what's happening. Elena collapsed into the chair and spread her papers across my desk. Financial statements, termination notices, legal documents, all stamped with the logos of Trinity Holdings, Cascade Investments, and Meridian Capital. All my investors pulled out, she said, her voice shaking. $75 million gone. Just like that. They want immediate repayment of all invested capital, plus they're canceling my lease guarantees and credit lines. My accountant says this will bankrupt me within 30 days. I picked up the Trinity Holdings termination notice and read it carefully. Patricia had done excellent work. Every detail was precise and legally bulletproof. This says they're exercising their right to withdraw capital with 30-day notice, I said. That's pretty standard language for investment agreements. Standard. Elena's voice pitched higher. There's nothing standard about 3 major investors coordinating to destroy a successful business. Something else is going on here. Someone convinced them to pull out. Someone who wants to hurt me. I set down the paperwork and looked at my sister directly. Elena was 32 years old, objectively successful, well-respected in her industry. She'd built something real and valuable even if it had been subsidized by my money. And right now she was watching it all collapse without understanding why. Elena, I said quietly, what makes you think someone wants to hurt you? Because the timing is suspicious. She pulled out her phone and scrolled to her Instagram post from Friday night. I posted about the new location, about success running in the family, and then boom, Monday morning everything falls apart. Someone saw that post and decided to take me down. I glanced at the post again. Still up, still accumulating likes and comments. Who would want to take you down? I don't know. Maybe a competitor? Maybe someone who's jealous of my success? Maybe someone who thinks I don't deserve what I've built. Elena was spiraling now, her paranoia building as she tried to make sense of what felt like a coordinated attack. I watched her struggle with the cognitive dissonance of her situation. She knew she was talented and hardworking, but she couldn't understand why that hadn't been enough to maintain her investors' confidence. Let me ask you something, I said. In your Instagram post you mentioned that success runs in the family, but not everyone. Who were you referring to? Elena looked confused by the question. I don't know. It was just a general comment about how some people are more entrepreneurial than others. But you tagged me in the post. Yeah, because you're family. I always tag family members in my business posts. And then you commented about dreamers and doers versus people who prefer steady paychecks. Elena shifted uncomfortably in her chair. I was just making conversation with Ashley. She was asking about family dynamics. Were you referring to me specifically? Elena paused, seeming to realize for the first time that this line of questioning might be relevant to her current crisis. I mean, you do prefer stability over risk. That's not an insult, it's just a fact. Is it a fact? Well, yeah. You work the same job, live in the same apartment, drive the same car. You've never started a business or taken any major financial risks. You're risk-averse. I opened my laptop and turned the screen toward Elena. My investment portfolio dashboard was displaying real-time valuations across dozens of holdings. Total assets under management, $892 million. Elena stared at the screen. What is this? My investment portfolio. She leaned forward, reading the numbers more carefully. Technology startups, real estate developments, international markets, private equity funds, venture capital investments. Page after page of holdings worth millions of dollars each. This says you have $800 million, she whispered. Assets under management, I corrected. My personal net worth is lower. About $430 million. Elena's face went through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally, a dawning understanding that made her complexion go pale. The shell companies, she said slowly. Trinity Holdings, Cascade Investments, Meridian Capital. Those are yours. Those are mine. You've been funding my business. For 3 years. $75 million. Correct. Elena sat back in her chair, staring at me like she'd never seen me before. But why? Why would you invest in my boutiques without telling me? Because I believed in your business plan and I wanted to help my sister succeed. But why pull out now? Why destroy everything I've built? I turned my laptop back toward me and pulled up Elena's Instagram post. Read your caption again. Elena looked at her phone, scanning the text she'd written Friday night. I don't understand. Success runs in the family. Well, not everyone. You posted photos of a business expansion funded entirely by my money, and you used that success to mock family members who you think are less accomplished. I wasn't mocking anyone specifically. You tagged me in a post celebrating your success, then commented about how some people prefer steady paychecks over entrepreneurial dreams. You were referring to me. Elena's voice became defensive. I was making a general point about different personality types. Some people are risk takers and others aren't. That's not personal. Elena, you used my money to build a business empire, then used that empire to publicly demonstrate why you're superior to family members like me who lack entrepreneurial spirit. The words hung in the air between us. Elena looked down at the termination notices spread across my desk, then back up at me. I didn't know it was your money, she said quietly. Would it have mattered if you did? Elena was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Let me ask you this, I continued. If you had known that your business was entirely funded by your risk-averse sister who prefers steady paychecks, would you have posted about how success runs in the family but not everyone? Probably not. Would you have made comments about dreamers and doers versus people who choose safety? No. So your willingness to mock family members for lacking business success was contingent on believing that you had achieved your success independently? Elena's shoulders sagged. When you put it like that, it sounds terrible. It was terrible, I said. You used success that I made possible to demonstrate your superiority over the person who made it possible. Elena buried her face in her hands. I had no idea. I thought I was being supported by sophisticated investors who believed in my vision. You were being supported by a sophisticated investor who believed in your vision. Me. So what happens now? Elena asked without looking up. Do I lose everything? Do the boutiques close? Do I file for bankruptcy? I considered her questions carefully. Elena's business was fundamentally sound: good locations, strong brand recognition, loyal customer base, solid operational systems. The only thing it lacked was capital, which I had withdrawn. That depends, I said. Elena looked up. On what? On whether you've learned anything from this experience. I've learned that I'm an ungrateful bitch who mocked the person funding my entire life. I shook my head. That's not what I want you to learn. Then what? I want you to understand that success isn't just about individual talent and hard work. It's also about support systems, access to capital, family networks, and dozens of other factors that successful people often don't acknowledge. Elena nodded slowly. I want you to recognize that when you use your success to make other people feel inferior, you're ignoring all the help you received along the way. Okay. And I want you to consider how you'll treat people differently if you get a second chance. Elena was quiet for several minutes, processing what I'd said. Finally she spoke. If you gave me another chance, I would never post anything like that again. I would be more thoughtful about how I talk about success and failure. I would remember that my achievements weren't just about my own abilities. What about family members who aren't entrepreneurs? I asked. How would you treat them? I would respect that people have different strengths and different definitions of success. I wouldn't assume that business ownership is the only meaningful achievement. What about people who choose stability over risk? I would recognize that there's wisdom in both approaches, and that my risk tolerance was probably easier to maintain because I had financial backing. I opened a new document on my laptop and began typing. I'm going to offer you a new investment agreement. $50 million in funding to restructure your existing debt and continue operations. Elena's eyes widened. Really? But with conditions. What conditions? I turned the screen toward her so she could read the document I was drafting. First, I want you to publicly acknowledge that your business success was built on anonymous investment from family members who believed in you before you believed in yourself. Elena nodded. I can do that. Second, I want you to use your platform to highlight other family members' achievements. Your brother Marcus's restaurant reviews, your cousin Derek's tech innovations, your uncle's community development projects. I want you to celebrate success in all its forms. Of course. Third, I want you to implement a mentorship program through your boutiques. Partner with local community colleges and vocational schools to provide internships and business training for people who might not have access to traditional entrepreneurial networks. Elena was reading through the document carefully. This is more than just financial terms. You're asking me to change how I think about success and how I use my platform. I'm asking you to remember that privilege comes with responsibility. And if I agree to all of this, then we'll restructure your business as a true partnership. You'll know exactly where the funding comes from, you'll have input on major financial decisions, and you'll understand that your success is connected to my success. Elena stood up and walked to my office window, looking out at the city skyline. Several of her boutique locations were visible from here, their signs bright against the urban landscape. I built something real, she said quietly. Even if I had help I didn't know about, I still built something real. You did. The question is what you'll build next and how you'll use it. Elena turned back to me. I want to sign your new agreement. All of it. The funding, the conditions, the partnership structure. I want to do this right. I printed the document and handed it to her along with a pen. Elena signed without hesitation, then handed it back to me. There's one more thing, I said, pulling out my phone. I want you to delete your Instagram post from Friday night. Elena opened her Instagram app and navigated to the post. 587 likes now, with dozens more comments praising her business acumen and subtly mocking unnamed family members. She deleted it. Now I want you to post something new, I said. Something that reflects what you've learned today. Elena thought for a moment, then began typing on her phone. After several minutes, she showed me what she'd written. Taking down my previous post because I realized it didn't reflect the gratitude I should have for everyone who helped make Elena's boutiques possible. Success is never just individual achievement. It's built on support from family, mentors, investors, employees, and communities who believe in you before you believe in yourself. I'm grateful for every person who contributed to this journey, especially those whose contributions I didn't fully recognize before today. #grateful, #community success, #family support. Post it, I said. Elena hit share, then looked up at me. Are we okay? I mean, as sisters. We're better than okay, I said. We're partners now. Elena smiled for the first time since she'd entered my office. Partners. I like that. Over the next week, I watched Elena implement the changes we'd discussed. Her social media posts shifted from personal achievement celebration to community recognition. She highlighted Marcus's restaurant's recent award, Derek's app launch, and our uncle's affordable housing project. She announced the new mentorship program and began partnering with local schools. Most importantly, she stopped using her business success as a weapon against family members she perceived as less accomplished. The new partnership structure worked well. Elena retained operational control of the boutiques while I provided strategic financial guidance. Revenue increased 23% over the next quarter, partly due to positive publicity from the mentorship program and community partnerships. But the biggest change was in family dynamics. Elena's new approach to success created space for everyone to be appreciated for their different contributions. Marcus felt comfortable sharing his culinary achievements. Derek gained confidence to discuss his technical innovations. Even I felt comfortable occasionally mentioning my investment work. 6 months later, Elena's Instagram post about the boutique's anniversary reflected how much had changed. 1 year ago, I thought success meant proving I was better than other people. Today I know success means lifting other people up. Elena's boutiques exists because of family support, community partnerships, and the wisdom of people who taught me that business is about service, not superiority. Grateful for every lesson, especially the hard ones. #community success, #family business, #grateful heart. The post received over 1,000 likes and dozens of comments from customers, family members, and community partners. But what mattered most to me was that Elena had learned to use her platform to build people up rather than tear them down. Success really does run in families. But only when we remember that it belongs to all of us. The text message arrived at 11:47 p.m. on December 23rd while I was sitting in Dr. Sarah Martinez's office for our emergency session. Christmas Eve dinner prep starts at 6 a.m. Don't forget the turkey needs to go in the oven by 8. Also, Cousin Mike's bringing his new girlfriend, so add 2 more place settings. Love you, Mom. Dr. Martinez looked up from her notepad where she'd been documenting our conversation for the past 50 minutes. How does reading that message make you feel, Rebecca? I stared at my phone, watching as 3 more messages appeared in rapid succession. Don't forget Grandma needs her blood pressure medication at 7 p.m. sharp during dinner. Aunt Linda. Can you pick up more wine? Dad drank half the bottles already. My sister Janet. Where did you put the good china? Can't find it anywhere. Mom. Exhausted, I answered honestly. And we haven't even started yet. This was our 3rd emergency session in 2 weeks. Dr. Martinez had been helping me understand that what my family called Rebecca being naturally good at organizing was actually a pattern of exploitation that had been building for over a decade. Tell me again about how this all started, she said, setting down her pen. I closed my eyes and let the memories surface. 12 years ago, when I was 24 and fresh out of college. Mom was recovering from her hysterectomy right before Thanksgiving. Janet was in her first year of medical school. My brother David was deployed overseas. I offered to help coordinate Thanksgiving dinner that year. Just that once. Just that once. But apparently I was so good at it that it became my permanent job. Every holiday. Every birthday party. Every family gathering. Easter, 4th of July, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, baby showers, graduation parties, retirement celebrations. Dr. Martinez leaned forward slightly. And how many family members typically attend these events you organize? 23 people for major holidays. 15 to 18 for smaller celebrations. But the Christmas season is the worst because it's actually 4 separate events. Christmas Eve dinner, Christmas morning breakfast, Christmas afternoon extended family gathering, and New Year's Eve party. 4 events that you plan and execute completely alone. Completely alone, I confirmed. While everyone else shows up, eats, socializes, and leaves. I handle all the shopping, cooking, decorating, setup, coordination, serving, and cleanup. My phone buzzed again. This time it was the family group chat exploding with last-minute requests. Rebecca, can you make sure there are vegetarian options for Mike's girlfriend? Aunt Carol, are we doing Secret Santa gifts this year? Need to know by tomorrow morning. Cousin Jenny, can you set up the kids' table with activities? Bringing all 4 grandkids. Uncle Pete, don't forget Dad's lactose intolerance. He can't have the regular mashed potatoes. Janet, is there a plan for Christmas morning coffee? Someone needs to get up early to start it. David, I showed Dr. Martinez the messages. This is what happens every year. Last-minute additions, special requests, dietary restrictions I'm supposed to remember and accommodate, plus the assumption that I'll handle every detail that makes their experience comfortable. What would happen if you simply didn't respond to these messages? They'd call. Then they'd show up at my apartment. Then they'd guilt me about ruining Christmas for everyone, especially the children. Have you ever tried to delegate any of these responsibilities? I laughed bitterly. Every year I try to create committees and assign tasks. Every year people agree to help and then don't follow through. Last Easter my cousin promised to bring me appetizers. She showed up empty-handed saying she forgot, and asking what I had for people to snack on while dinner was finishing. So you've learned that if you don't handle everything personally, the events fail. Exactly. And when events fail, I get blamed for not planning better or asking for help sooner. It's a no-win situation. Dr. Martinez made another note. Rebecca, what would you be doing tomorrow if you weren't orchestrating Christmas for 23 people? The question caught me off guard. I don't know. I haven't had a Christmas morning to myself since I was 24. Would you like to find out? I stared at her, understanding the implication of her question. You mean just not show up? I mean protecting your own well-being by removing yourself from a situation that has become detrimental to your mental health. But the family is made up of capable adults who managed to feed themselves and celebrate holidays before you took over these responsibilities. That night, I went home to my apartment and looked at my Christmas preparations. My dining room table was covered with detailed timelines, shopping lists organized by store, cooking schedules broken down by hour, seating charts, menu plans that accommodated 7 different dietary restrictions, and activity plans for 6 children ranging from age 4 to 14. I'd spent the past 3 weeks shopping for ingredients, decorations, and gifts for people who would spend Christmas Day relaxing while I worked non-stop from 6 a.m. until midnight. My own Christmas presents sat unopened under my small tree because I never had time to enjoy them during the holidays. At 2 a.m. I made a decision that terrified and exhilarated me in equal measure. I opened my laptop and searched for cabin rentals within driving distance. I found a small place in the mountains 3 hours away, available for a last-minute booking. No cell service. No internet. Just a fireplace, some books, and complete solitude. I booked it for 3 nights. Christmas Eve morning, I packed a bag with clothes, snacks, and the novel I'd been trying to read for 6 months. I loaded my car and drove out of town while my family was probably waking up and wondering why I hadn't arrived at 6 a.m. as scheduled. I didn't turn off my phone until I was already 2 hours away from the city. The cabin was perfect. Small, warm, and completely isolated from the chaos I'd left behind. I spent Christmas Eve reading by the fireplace, cooking a simple meal for one, and enjoying the first holiday silence I'd experienced in over a decade. Christmas morning, I made coffee and sat on the cabin's porch watching snow fall on the mountain peaks. At 10 a.m. I finally turned my phone back on. 86 missed calls. 143 text messages. 27 voicemails. I scrolled through the messages chronologically, watching my family's Christmas unfold in real time. 6:15 a.m. Where are you? Turkey needs to go in the oven now. Mom. 6:45 a.m. Rebecca, this isn't funny. Call me back. Janet. 7:30 a.m. Kids are asking where Aunt Rebecca is. What do I tell them? Uncle Pete. 8 a.m. There's no food prepared. What were you thinking? Dad. 8:45 a.m. Rebecca, if this is some kind of protest, you've made your point. Come back and fix this. Aunt Carol. 9:30 a.m. 23 people are supposed to eat dinner here in 6 hours and there's nothing ready. Mom. 10:15 a.m. We're trying to figure out how to cook a turkey. None of us have ever done it. David. 11 a.m. Grandma's crying because there's no Christmas dinner. Are you happy now? Janet. 11:45 a.m. We called 3 restaurants. Everything's closed. This is a disaster. Aunt Linda. 12:30 p.m. Some people are going home. This is the worst Christmas ever. Cousin Jenny. I listened to the voicemails while sitting in my peaceful cabin. Mom crying about the ruined holiday. Dad shouting about responsibility and family obligations. Aunt Carol demanding to know where I was and insisting that I return immediately to fix everything. But the message that affected me most came from my 8-year-old nephew Tyler. Aunt Rebecca, Mommy says Christmas is ruined because you left. Did we do something wrong? I miss you. I saved that message and deleted the rest. By 2 p.m. the tone of the messages had shifted. Rebecca, wherever you are, please call back. We're worried about you. Mom. We found some frozen dinners at the convenience store. Not exactly Christmas dinner, but people are eating. David. I think we were too hard on Rebecca. She's been doing everything for years. Uncle Pete. Maybe we should have helped more instead of just showing up and expecting everything to be done. Aunt Linda. Christmas evening brought the call I'd been anticipating. Aunt Carol, the family's unofficial spokesperson, tracked down the cabin's landline number. Rebecca, what on earth are you thinking? Christmas is ruined without your planning. You can't just stop organizing everything. I listened to her rant while watching snow fall outside my window. Actually, Carol, I can. And I did. But the family depends on you. The family depends on me doing unpaid labor so they can enjoy holidays without any effort or responsibility. That's not. We appreciate everything you do. When's the last time someone thanked me for Christmas dinner? Long pause. Well, we always say how nice everything looks. When's the last time someone offered to bring something beyond a bottle of wine? Another pause. You never ask for help. I shouldn't have to ask. You're all adults who eat the food and enjoy the events. You should volunteer to help. We just assumed you liked doing it. You're so good at organizing. Being competent doesn't mean I want to sacrifice my entire holiday for everyone else's comfort. After I hung up, I spent the evening reading and reflecting on 12 years of holiday stress. How I'd gradually become the family's unpaid event coordinator. How my own Christmas experience had been reduced to a marathon of serving other people. The next morning, my phone rang with a call from Dr. Martinez. Rebecca, I hope you don't mind that I'm calling on the holiday, but I wanted to check on how you're feeling. Guilty and peaceful at the same time. That's a normal response. You've broken a 12-year pattern. The guilt will fade as you realize that your family's discomfort is temporary, but your mental health matters long-term. They're all angry with me. Are they angry, or are they experiencing the natural consequences of taking your labor for granted? I looked out at the mountains, feeling more relaxed than I had during any holiday season in recent memory. They had to figure out how to feed themselves yesterday. And did they manage? Frozen dinners from a convenience store. Not exactly festive, but nobody starved. Then they demonstrated that they're capable of handling their own needs when necessary. When I returned home 2 days later, I found 17 voicemails waiting. But these messages were different from the angry demands of Christmas morning. Rebecca, I owe you an apology. I never realized how much work you put into our holidays. Uncle Pete. I talked to my kids about helping more. They didn't understand that you did everything alone. Aunt Linda. We want to do better. Can we meet and figure out how to share responsibilities? Janet. I'm sorry we took you for granted. You deserve to enjoy Christmas too. Mom. The family meeting was scheduled for January 3rd at Mom's house. All 23 relatives gathered to discuss holiday planning going forward. I arrived to find them sitting around the living room with notebooks and serious expressions. Rebecca, we owe you an apology, Mom began. We've been selfish and thoughtless about the work you've been doing for our family. We never considered that you might want to actually enjoy the holidays instead of working through them, added Uncle Pete. Janet pulled out a detailed list. We've researched how much work goes into the events you've been organizing. The shopping, cooking, decorating, setup, coordination, and cleanup for 23 people is essentially a part-time job. A part-time job you've been doing for free while we showed up and enjoyed the results, David said quietly. Aunt Carol, who'd been my harshest critic on Christmas Day, spoke up. We want to create a rotating system where different families host different holidays. And we want to establish committees for food, decorations, activities, and cleanup. Would you be willing to help us organize this new system? Mom asked hopefully. I looked around the room at my family members, all of whom seemed genuinely committed to change. I'll help create the framework, but I won't be the permanent coordinator anymore. We understand, Janet said. We also want to pay you back for all the money you've spent on our holidays over the years. How much money? David consulted his notes. We estimated that you've spent approximately $15,000 of your own money on family holidays over the past 12 years. Groceries, decorations, supplies, gifts for the kids' activities. I hadn't realized the financial cost had been so significant. I don't need you to pay me back. We want to, Uncle Pete insisted. It's the right thing to do. The new system they created actually worked. Easter was hosted by Janet and her husband, with assigned committees handling different aspects of the meal. My job was bringing rolls and helping with cleanup, tasks that took 2 hours instead of 2 days. 4th of July was handled by Uncle Pete's family, with a potluck format that distributed the work among multiple households. I contributed a side dish and enjoyed the first relaxed holiday meal I'd had in years. By Thanksgiving, the family had developed efficient systems for collaboration. The host family handled the main dish and location. 3 other families brought side dishes. 2 families managed decorations and setup. Everyone participated in cleanup. For the first time in 12 years, I was a guest at family gatherings instead of the unpaid staff. Christmas that year was hosted by David and his wife, with the careful planning and committee structure the family had developed. I arrived as a guest, brought 2 assigned side dishes, and spent the day socializing instead of working. During the gift exchange, my nephew Tyler handed me a card made from construction paper and crayons. Thank you for teaching us that Christmas is about family, not just food, he'd written in his careful 8-year-old handwriting. Later that evening, Mom pulled me aside. Rebecca, I need to apologize for something specific. I've been thinking about all those years when I watched you work so hard during holidays while I sat and relaxed. I was your mother. I should have been protecting you from that kind of exploitation, not participating in it. You didn't realize what was happening. I should have realized. I should have been paying attention to how tired you were, how stressed you looked, how you never got to enjoy the events you created. 6 months later, I received a check in the mail from the family fund they'd established. $15,000 to reimburse my holiday expenses, plus interest. The note attached said, "Thank you for teaching us the difference between helping family and sacrificing yourself for family." A year after my Christmas morning escape, Dr. Martinez and I reflected on the changes in my life. "How do you feel about holidays now?" she asked. "I actually look forward to them. I get to enjoy the food, spend time with people I care about, and participate in traditions without feeling like I'm running a catering business." "And how has your relationship with your family changed?" "They respect my time and boundaries now. They ask before assuming I'll handle things. They thank me when I do help with something. They've learned to manage their own celebrations." What was the most important lesson from this experience? I thought about my peaceful Christmas morning in the mountain cabin, about the panic my absence had created, and about the healthier family dynamics that had emerged from that crisis. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is remove yourself from a situation that allows other people to avoid taking responsibility. My family didn't learn to value my contributions until they had to function without them. Do you regret missing that Christmas? Not for a second. It was the first Christmas morning in 12 years that I spent focusing on my own peace and happiness. That cabin trip saved my mental health and ultimately saved my relationship with my family. Sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is permission to step away from situations that drain your energy without providing reciprocal respect. Sometimes the holiday that you don't organize becomes the foundation for holidays that everyone can actually enjoy. My Christmas morning escape had taught my family that appreciation isn't just words. It's actions, effort, and the willingness to share responsibilities rather than expecting one person to sacrifice themselves for everyone else's comfort. As I sat in my apartment the following Christmas Eve, wrapping presents and preparing to attend David's beautifully organized dinner as a relaxed guest, I realized that the best Christmas gift I'd ever received was the courage to protect my own well-being by saying no to a tradition that had become toxic. The mountain cabin where I'd spent that Christmas morning had given me something more valuable than any family gathering: the understanding that my time, energy, and mental health were worth protecting, even if protecting them temporarily disappointed other people. Sometimes the most important boundary you can set is the one that teaches others to respect what you've been giving them all along.